Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network. And we have been waiting such a long time to discuss this series that we're about to discuss with you guys. It is Andor, the Star Wars series, season 2, the first 3 episodes, the first arc of season 2, the final season of the show. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined by my Star Wars buddy, who we have been discussing this series for so long, Mark Jacobino.
I can't believe we're here, Darren. Like,
it's been so long we've been talking about
this. After every recording for all the Star Wars series we've covered, we've just said, man, I can't wait for Andor season 2. And it's like, it's here. It's crazy.
It's here. And we were just talking off camera right before we started. And I was talking about the, because you sat down and watched all 3 in succession as soon as they released. I watched the first 2 and then watched the last one today before recording. And I was like, how after those 3 episodes, like in succession, like, how did you feel about the model? Like, it was like, were you drained after? Were you like hyped up and you were like, I need to run around the house, and just like, there was so much that happens in the first 3 episodes. But non-spoiler, just to start us off, we get the first 3 here of the final season of Tony Gilroy's magnum opus with Andor. How did you feel after the long wait that we had in between seasons?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, Tony is just a master at the build up and payoff. It's methodical. You really don't know what you're thrown into, and you just start getting the lay of the land. You understand characters and what they're doing in these locations, and then it just naturally just kind of builds up and up and up and up. And even like the small moments, the big moments, everything is just contributing to this final boiling over in the last episode. And the last episode's tragic. It's dark. But I also found that there was an interesting tonal shift in these first 3 episodes compared to season 1. I felt like there was a lot more humor injected into the series. There was a lot more levity in certain aspects of the show that I didn't expect. And yeah, overall, really strong start for the season. I have 2 critiques, one related to a certain character's arc in these first 3 episodes and a plot point within it. And then one related to a very horrific scene towards the end of episode 3 that's more broadly related to Star Wars that we'll get into when we get into spoilers.
Okay, I wonder if your first gripe is the same that I have, because I do have one gripe.
Yeah.
And it is one that I've heard other people feel similarly. So I wonder if we're on the same path with it. But for me, and we talked about this on your podcast, the Mark of Balance podcast, the first one I ever went on with you, where you interviewed me about my Star Wars story before you were a member of the network.
Yeah.
And we touched a little bit upon Rogue One and how much of that movie made an impact on me. I was like, man, like this movie felt so much deeper. It related to human characters and just authentic portrayals of character that I felt so attached to. And then I don't think Andor had come out when you interviewed me. I don't think at that point.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
And we did like we were talking, texting on and off before you, like I said, joined the network. And I remember just us like being so excited about the way they were presenting Star Wars storytelling in Andor. And I'm happy to say that through the first 3 episodes, it feels like we're just jolted right back into it. There's so many little things that they're able to do that just makes it feel very raw and authentic within the confines and the corners of Star Wars that we don't see. And that's what I love more than anything about this story. Also, that Tony is able to balance multiple storylines across 3 episodes that all feel like they're dedicated an even amount of time to, and it gets you the through line of the story and interconnects all of the things with the rebellion and how they're going to do what they're going to do, on top of the fact with the Empire and Krennic, which we'll get to. He's in this season.
Yeah.
And he's only in one scene in the first 3 episodes.
Right.
But I was like, oh, I'm so happy he's back, because I love Ben Mendelsohn as an actor. And I think him in this role, I actually think you can make an argument that in this one scene, he's even more intimidating than he could have been in Rogue One.
Yeah. Well, I think in Rogue One, you know, you have the ambition, you have the cunning, but at the end of the day, he feels almost childlike because he's losing control and he wants to get this project over the finish line. You know, Vader has that iconic scene where he chokes him out, and, you know, he does feel like he's taken down a peg in that movie, but this show will remind us that he is a director. He is someone that discusses plans with Palpatine directly. Like, he didn't just fall there. Like, he earned that spot, and I think he kind of takes over the screen in that scene, and especially sunning someone like Dedra, who thought she was so like mysterious, standing in the corner. Oh, I don't want anyone to know what I'm thinking. And he's like, you knew the plan right when you walked in here. Tell me what you think. And she's like, oh, oops, shit.
Yeah.
So I like that he's a big player.
You feel it immediately, and it's Dedra is a character where you feel her ambition and you feel the tension of her scenes in the first season, and she immediately feels smaller in the room in that scene. But that's just one scene of many that we'll get to. We're just excited, everybody. Let's start with the way the show starts. The season starts. So obviously we start with our titular character of Cassian Andor, Diego Luna, who is Emmy nominated for this role, correct?
And Golden Globe,
Yes, and Golden Globe nominated for his role as Cassian. And we see that he's on this base, I guess, and he goes to break into and steal a TIE fighter. It's kind of like a prototyped TIE fighter.
Yeah.
And he quickly realizes that he is so in over his head. And it's just a great breakout sequence, and it's a great sequence that feels very Star Wars in the opening, and it jolts you right into the action, which I think is needed because we'll get into it more in detail, but I think that Cassian's arc over the first 2 episodes is the weakest part of the first 3 episodes. So getting to see that intro to his character and kind of bring him back and be like, oh, we're kicking this off. He's going to, he has the vehicle that he needs. He's going to get the people that he needs. And then we eventually see where he ends up. It's like, oh shit, man. Like that's a hell of a start to get us to somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. That's one of my criticisms. I feel the Rebel turf war sidetrack was weak in the sense that I think it could have been done more interestingly, or they could have put Cassian in a more interesting circumstance that's stopping him from getting home to save Bix and Brasso and the whole Ferrex gang. I just felt like it was there was a lot of comedic, back and forth, and I just wasn't interested in the conflict. And I get that this is true to the galaxy, that there's going to be these pockets of rebellions that are completely, in over their backpacking it in these woods. They don't even know what they're doing. They have like little equipment. Like, I get that's true to the galaxy, but it didn't feel, that interesting to me. And I trust Tony Gilroy. I have a feeling that these guys are going to come back, and there's going to be some payoff to this interaction, because Tony usually doesn't do this. He doesn't just do something to waste time. And it is revealed in the end that this is Yavin 4, the base of A New Hope.
Okay.
At the end they show the those structures, and so I think it's going to come back to that, because we know that the base that we see in Rogue One and A New Hope is on Yavin 4. So I don't know, maybe that was just an Easter egg, but I also err on the side of Tony is playing the long game. Yeah,
I think that's fair. I think the biggest reason why I didn't relate to it and I wasn't interested in it is because the characters themselves were not interesting on the planet. That's how I felt. Not to make a reference to another Star Wars show, and it wasn't this dramatic, I guess, but it reminded me very much of Jake Cannavale in The Mandalorian, how it just felt like a character out of touch, like being in that universe. Like, for those characters, I just felt like how ridiculously stupid they were, and putting it at the beginning of the series when we're dealing with such serious things. I mean, again, like, for the people who don't know, these 3 episode arcs all take place over a year of time. So there's a lot that needs to be accomplished in each arc.
Well, one year between them.
Yes, that's what I mean. So we have the first 3 episodes, and then when we get to episodes 4, 5, and 6, it's going to have been a year has passed. So you do have to do a lot in those 3 episodes, because now we're going to have a whole year of exposition that is going to need to be filled in on top of the present circumstances of the mission that they're on, obviously. So like you're saying, like, to introduce something that feels so insignificant seems odd for Andor and the structure of the storytelling. But in a sense that Diego Luna still, I thought, like, propelled in those scenes. So that's where I think it's like, it might have been a problem in terms of like the characters that they developed in those scenes, why it didn't work for me.
Yeah, that's me personally. I think Diego was great in these first 3 episodes. I think a lot of people were maybe critical of his performance in the first season, thinking like he wasn't that, you know, emotionally ranged. You know, he was very subtle in his performance, which is why I think it was so brilliant. But I thought his shift over this year of just him having that confidence and him being able to instill that motivation into the girl who was working in the Imperial base, and you know, she's like doubting herself, she's shaking, and he knows how to like comfort her but also inspire her and be like, hey, the fact that you made this decision, you're already brave, like you've already made it. And I thought just that was great. And again, you know, by the end he goes through another tragedy, and so I'm very curious to see, you know, what happens to him over these next 3 arcs, whether he becomes, you know, jaded like he kind of is in Rogue One, where he's like all about the mission and it's like a darker outlook on the galaxy, whereas at the end of the first season and in this first arc he's actually kind of optimistic and he's like, oh, we're gonna do this, you got this. He's fully bought in, so I'm very interested.
Yeah, I think I don't feel good about the people around Cassian. That's all I'll say. We obviously don't know, but knowing where he ends up in Rogue One, I do feel that way. We are going to start talking spoilers. We kind of already did, but again, just a warning. This is mostly a spoiler talk, so you guys have been warned. If you guys haven't watched the episodes yet, go watch episodes 1, 2, and 3 of season 2 of Andor, and then come back and listen to the commentary. But that for Cassian over the first 2 episodes is one of the storylines that they tackle. There's 3 other storylines they tackle amidst this. Let's jump to your queen. Let's jump to Mon Mothma.
There she is.
Genevieve O'Reilly, such a long game player in the Star Wars universe. Yeah. Kudos to her for being in it for so long and finally getting a real showcase with Andor to her abilities as an actress. But her story is a continuation, obviously. I mean, all this is a continuation of season 1, but we know that her daughter is now a part of an arranged marriage. And so much of these first 3 episodes deal with the lead up to that and then the eventual marriage of her daughter. And remind me the character's name that she makes the deal with, if you know it.
Yeah, I forget.
Okay, so but
he's
it's somebody,
like this criminal banker kind of guy.
Yes. And I believe they come up with this deal because the husband is in debt. Is that what it is?
So they need to. No, that was a lie. She told a lie because she knew her driver was listening.
Okay.
So the reason that she's involved with this guy is that she needs to hide her money.
Oh, hide the money for the rebellion.
These bank accounts.
Yes,
because she's funding the rebellion, but she can't do it openly. Yep.
Obviously. Okay, yes. So we're seeing this arranged marriage, and we see a lot play out over that. But along with that, Luthen is there on that planet for the whole time. Yeah. And Stellan Skarsgård, I think, is, I don't want to say he might not be your favorite. He's probably my favorite character in Andor. But we get some of those great quippy, again, like the way he's so two-sided on everything he's doing. I love the interactions between them and the other character that starts to kind of overplay his hand a little bit in terms of the gray-haired guy.
Oh, Tay Colmer, her old friend.
Colmer, her old friend. And we see a big shift in terms of their relationship across these 3 episodes because he feels that his investments aren't paying off. And he blames the rebellion outwardly. Yeah. And it's a big problem. So I'm curious on your thoughts on the repercussions of that and where we can go in these next few arcs.
Yeah, like you said, just the fact that Tony Gilroy can kind of juggle all of these tension-filled interactions and have them all kind of slowly build up and pay off all at once in the 3rd episode is just like so incredible. But yeah, I love this twist with Tay Colmer, you know, being this. He was so agreeable in the first season. Mon Mothma was like, I need to hide my money. And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. I'll get like all options. I'll talk to my guys. And he's like, yeah, no worries. I'll take care of it. And then this first, maybe like the first or second conversation, there's just something off. And you're just like, is he like attracted to her? Like, does he want to finally like move forward with like a physical relationship? And then the next conversation, it's like he's drunk. He's like, yeah, you know, the rebellion's really, really souring a lot of my investments. And you're just like, there's just this shift. And they use a great camera angle of it like shooting down on him.
It's canted, it's down, it's like all in your face.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I love that twist because I didn't expect that to be the tension point of this. The tension point I thought would be the marriage itself. But then he has that and the marriage. So her relationship with her daughter is tenuous, and now her relationship with her oldest and probably only friend really left is tenuous, and then by the end she loses both. It's just like,
not only that, but then on top of that, obviously, for the like, she has the relationship she has with her husband, which was an arranged marriage, similar to what her daughter's going through. And we get a great scene with her and Luthen at the end. I believe it is episode 3, when he basically is asking like, what's the number, right? In terms of like, what is it, like how much he owes or how much they need to pay him to. And he basically is like, I don't think you understand how big of a deal this is for you. Like, this could be really, really bad, and like, you're going to be vulnerable. Like, this is going to be a problem. And she's like, I don't know what you mean. And then he's like, what is the exact word? It's great.
Oh, he said something like, I wish I were you, or something like that.
It's something that's like, it's great that you don't know. It's like something along the lines of that. Like, but it's so well written, and that's why I don't want to butcher it. But it's like the tension that is rising with the reality that Mon Mothma is this double agent, essentially, or she's just someone that's hiding her rebellion ties, living in this luxurious, lavish life, is such a big selling point. It was such a big point of season 1. It's like, oh, this is espionage in Star Wars, and it's so cool to see that. With the juxtaposition from your perspective of like jumping back and forth, we have that, and then we don't have to dive fully into the next storyline, but like then you go to like Cassian's whole crew that's living on like these like farmlands, and it's like they're wearing overalls and they're farmers, they're living a very simple life. I know it's a big part of what we loved about season 1, but talk to me more about like getting reintroduced into that and the storyline in general with the marriage, and then we eventually get like this giant wedding scene, which is like, we haven't had that in Star Wars. You know, like we've seen characters get married, but it's like you're a fly on the wall for a wedding in Star Wars, and Mon Mothma's getting hammered and she's chugging back drinks. You know what I mean? So
I mean, first of all, the set designers, the costume designers, this was incredible. I mean, the amount of detail that went into these ornate rooms and all of these ceremonies. It was so beautiful. Every wardrobe change for each of the characters was just like more stunning than the next. It's just, it just, there was so much passion on the screen, and I was just like, I was floored. And then, like you said, we haven't seen anything like this. And the fact that we were fully immersed in this traditional wedding, and we saw every step of the way. You know, they have the climbing of the mountain, they have the actual ceremony itself. Just like every step, you were just a part of it. And the fact that Star Wars can still surprise you with these really deep lore and cultural moments, whether they're new or, you know, I don't know if a extended universe novel like discussed the Chandril and wedding before, like I have no idea, but just the fact that we were just there every step of the way.
You get to see like the customs of the way that a marriage works in an arranged marriage. Like you see the father give the blade to the husband, he cuts off Leia's braid, the ceremonial kind of circular motion that the whole families need to go through. And it's just so interesting to see lore that doesn't feel like it's lore for the sake of being lore.
Exactly.
It's really thought out, and it's well produced, and it's well written. And like you said, like maybe these things do exist. Like you're more tuned into Star Wars obviously than I am, but it feels like Tony does such a good job of just creating his own world within this world that still feels so authentic to Star Wars, but is still so singular and his own vision. You know what I mean? And the fact that we haven't talked about this because we haven't talked about the show before, but a larger question overall for Andor, right? We know the end game for this show. We know where we're going to end up. And you're right, it is classic Star Wars, but it feels different with this show. Have you been able to put your finger on like why that is? Or like, again, is it just a credit to the movie making and the cinematic feeling of the series?
Yeah, I think it's all those things. I also think he was very smart to select the characters he did, because they're characters, either they're brand new or they're characters that were maybe not explored as much, like Mon Mothma, like someone you really don't know that much about, even though she's this huge figure in Star Wars. And then in Cassian, you know, Cassian in Rogue One, you know, you do get some backstory, you do understand what his motivations are, but there was so much rich story to dive into about how someone gets to that point. And then on the Imperial side, I think he just took a framework of like, hey, if these are space Nazis in the original trilogy, how does that extend out to how they would control the galaxy, and what type of characters would live in that type of system? And if you extrapolate from that, I mean, it just kind of writes itself. And like you said in the beginning, like, we don't know what happens to a lot of these characters. We don't know what happens to Luthen. We don't know what happens to Bix. We know what happens to Brasso now. We don't know what happens to Dedra. So he was just very smart to bring in a lot of new characters that aren't galactic spanning characters that would mess up anything, but also they're not insignificant. Like, they do have weight to what they do.
Yeah, and I think the like you talked about again, like how it doesn't feature a lot of galactic characters. Like, it makes the extraterrestrial and galactic parts of the series feel bigger in scope, because everything else that we've seen across like the episodic stuff, it's all that. It's all space battles. It's all literal Star Wars. You know what I mean? And like, even going back to the beginning scene of this series, like, it feels so big that Cassian is able to board a TIE fighter and to get that for their team. You know what I mean? Like, it feels bigger because their whole mission is to get to that ship. Yeah. That's the mission. You know, it's not like good versus evil. We have to stop the bet. You know what I mean? Like, it's so point A to point B to get to the eventual bigger mission. But because they make it so contained and so small, even though it's dealing with these bigger overarching things, I think that's why the show works so well, is because, again, it just goes back to character development. It's so much about the writing of the characters and building out these characters, because you were talking about how Cassian is like rich in terms of like there was so much story we could have gone down like with him, but I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like we've talked about this on camera before. Nobody was excited for a Cassian Andor series when it was first announced.
I was not.
You know what I mean? Like, it was a character that, not that he was poorly introduced in Rogue One, but he wasn't the most interesting character in Rogue One. So you're like, I don't know if we need to just, again, like, we're in that era of like, oh, they make a spinoff for everything. Yeah. So it was like, it didn't feel like it was rich in terms of being able to tell this story. But because you bring in someone like Tony Gilroy, who has this mapped out real plan of getting from here all the way to here, and how we're going to do that, and how I'm going to introduce all these supporting characters that are so that you fall in love with. And you brought it up already, so we could talk about it. Like, Brasso dying, I yelled at the TV. Like, I did. I don't do that all the time, but I was like, shit. Like, I'm like sitting there, I'm like, shit. My girlfriend's like, what did you like think he was going to die? I was like, I knew he was going to have to die at some point. Like, you have that feeling. You're like, again, not all of them have to die, but you know, like you already talked about, like, Cassian is, at least seems alone by the time we get to the beginning of Rogue One. So you know that some of these characters might have to start getting cut off one by one. And Brasso was a character that I've loved since season 1. And it just feels earned. You know what I mean? Like, the characters and their stories feel earned.
He's such a ride or die. I mean, my thesis for this show is that all of our main pillars of the rebellion are going to lose everything for the rebellion. So Mon Mothma, I think, at the end of these 3 episodes, has essentially broken. Like, she's lost everything. She's lost her oldest friend. Her daughter is officially gone. She's never really had Perrin. And now Luthen and her are just kind of alone. Like, Luthen is already at that place. We already saw his speech the last season. Like, he's already there. He's lost everyone. He's fully committed to the rebellion. Saw Gerrera, anarchist, fully committed to the rebellion. Mon Mothma, I think, now is just going to be kind of in the same place. Like, I don't think she's going to play that game anymore of trying to control her life. I think she's just going to be like, you know what? I'm all in on the rebellion. Whatever happens, happens. And I think Cassian's going to get there too. He's going to potentially lose Bix. He's going to lose this other guy from Ferrix. Like, he's already lost his mom and his dad. I just think the goal of the series and kind of the tone that they've set is that, you know, they're giving everything for the rebellion. They're sacrificing everything for the rebellion, and Rogue One, that payoff is worth it all. Like, you see the fruits of the labor, and I think that would be beautifully tragic. And I think that's my thesis for the rest of the season,
where they could end up. Do you think that by the time we get to next week's episodes 4, 5, and 6, do you think that Mon Mothma is already like fully entrenched in the rebellion now at this point?
I think she'll be more overtly. Yeah, I'm curious. We haven't seen many like Senate scenes with her. I want to see that. Like, I want to see her speak out like directly at the Senate.
Do you know in terms of timeline? Because the first 3 episodes take place for
BBY, which I think is before the Battle of Yavin.
Yes.
I think. So yeah, I mean,
do you know in terms of like the canon? Do you know like at what point she starts doing?
No, I don't know. I really don't think it's been explored that much outside of maybe like books or like extended universe. So I really don't know, because in the original trilogy, like, she's very stoic. She's very, standoffish. You don't see a lot of her. So it would make sense that you know, she does finally like break away from the Empire and then just becomes this silent, you know, like leader and figure for the rebellion that doesn't have close people to her. She kind of separates herself from everyone. But yeah, I don't know when she officially leaves the Imperial Senate. I don't know what that looks like, but I'd love to see her, you know, have that big breakout speech where she just lays it out on the line and then she escapes. And I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. So one thing for people who might be tuning into us for the first time, I unfortunately have not seen Clone Wars or Rebels. Mark has watched both. I did see on a video online that there is like a history between Saw Gerrera and Mon Mothma where he kind of goes against her being the leader of the rebels.
Yeah, there's an episode in Rebels season 3 or 4, I think.
Okay, so is that something in which you think they're going to play? They're going to have an interaction within the next. I mean, it might not be next week's batch of episodes, but Saw Gerrera we do not see in the first 3 episodes. And we know he's in the series. We know Forrest Whitaker is back.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that we see soon, or do you think it's a pivotal thing that we need to see for this season?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that we see the leaders kind of bashing heads. Like Bail Organa is going to have to come into play. Mon Mothma, Saw Gerrera never really enlists in the formal rebellion, so he's always just going to be a loose cannon wild card that they can't wrangle. And I'm sure they're going to try to, and I'm sure that's going to be in the season, but they're not going to be able to because he's just insane. But he's also the truest like believer of what they're trying to do, and he doesn't think twice. He's just like, I don't care who dies, like I'm just going for it, and I'm gonna be helpful in a certain way, but you can't build a rebellion on that only.
Yeah, for sure. Let's jump back to one of the other storylines that has again Brasso before he dies. Bix. We have is it Wilman?
Wilman. Yeah.
Wilman, something like that. And they are in this like tranquil field, and they're doing these like small jobs within this town that they're kind of like hiding out in, and they're waiting for Cassian to come and pick them up. And I did, like I said, for me personally, I really love the juxtaposition where we go from like that back to like the royalty of like the world that Mon Mothma is living in, and then like the swamp that Cassian's in, regardless of not loving that storyline, just the jumping back and forth between all that I thought is really interesting, and they do such a good job of balancing it in the edit. But this was probably my favorite story of the different stories that we had. I do love Adria Arjona, like I've talked about. Like I just think her acting ability is really impressive to me. Like I also think she's just one of the most drop dead gorgeous women I've ever seen in my life. So anytime I can see her on screen, it's great. But Bix is a character too. Like our intro to her in this season, dealing with the ramifications and the PTSD of what happened when she was tortured in season 1.
Yeah.
So then we bookend it with an attempted sexual assault from an Imperial officer.
Yeah.
And it's intense. It's a very intense scene. It's one of the darker, if not the darkest scene in Star Wars, maybe ever.
I think so.
Yeah.
No.
So just in terms of what her character goes through in these first 3 episodes, and now she's finally going to be reunited with Cassian, which she was waiting on. But how did you feel about seeing that in Star Wars, and kind of, like you said, like going from point A to point B by the end of this 3-episode arc, and she's just like a tortured soul, man. Like Bix has gone through a lot.
She is going through it like all the time. So yeah, this is where another one of my criticisms come from, and it's not that the scene isn't warranted, because I think it's very much in line with what the Empire would be doing at this point in the galaxy. They're exploiting the entire galaxy at all points, you know, for resources, for human slavery, for this. Like I wasn't shocked at this scene that it's included. I thought that's where they were going with the tone of it
and the initial interaction.
It was very off-putting, and you're like, wow, are they really going to keep kind of twisting this tension? And then it does come to that, and yeah, it was shocking. It made me feel, you know, dirty watching it. And my criticism of it is the fact that she does give it the name. You know, she does say the R word to the officer that's coming in, and to me, I think Tony Gilroy is well within his rights to try and, he knows the weight of the scene, and he wants to use those words specifically for that. And I get it. I also think that there's an argument to be made that Star Wars is still something that is aimed towards children and families, especially because George Lucas wanted that. And I don't think a kid, 10, 12, 13, 14, who's watching this with his or her dad or mom should be exposed to that word through Star Wars. I don't think Star Wars should be the franchise to introduce that word into someone's dictionary, especially a kid who's coming to Star Wars for an escape. That's not saying Andor has shown things that aren't mature, but I also think that that's a very real world
That's a different line.
That's a line, especially because we can't even say the word on YouTube. And the fact that, this is on Disney Plus and it's Star Wars. So just to me, that's just something like deep down inside of me that I'm just like, George, I don't think would agree with the use of that word in Star Wars, especially because it could be a kid's first introduction to the word.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair criticism of it. I think my counter to it, not that I disagree with what you're saying, is that we unfortunately live in a very overexposed world.
Yeah.
At this point, even like but I totally understand bringing up the fact that again, like it's a Disney property. Disney Plus now is a home to everything. Yeah. You can watch rated R movies on Disney Plus now at this point with the Hulu add-on and things like that. So it's a thing where I do understand. And again, like maybe if it's a choice in terms of, like you said, I think that the scene itself plays well to the story and it's telling the story that it needs to tell. Maybe just not overexposing, like you said, and introducing younger people to that word at such a young age. Like you said, through the means of Star Wars, it is like a jarring kind of thing. But I do think that's part of the point for Tony.
I don't think Tony minces words. I don't think he just put that in there for shock value. Like, I get it. He is very intentional with his words. I get it. That's just my take.
No, and I think it's I think it's a fair take. But as a character, man, like she's haunted like by a lot of things that have happened now. Do you think that her PTSD through not only this interaction, but again, what happened in season 1 and the torture and the capture she has in that season, and she has the first nightmare of the officer that was kind of like teasing her a lot in that and toying with her in her capture in season 1. Yeah. Do you think that ultimately leads to something where she can't do something? Do you think it's going to lead to a mistake at the hands of Bix or something where
I think it leads her to the rebellion. I think it just makes her hatred for the Imperials like even so deep seated at this point where instead of running away like in the previous, she's running away at this point, and then when the Imperials are coming, like we have to get out of here, we have to pack up. By the end of this, after she basically beats the officer over the head with a wrench and probably kills him, she comes out and shoots the other one, and I think that's just her reclaiming her power and just being like, you know what? I'm not running from these guys anymore. Like I'm gonna fight back because these guys have been fucking with me for way too long. So I think she's just gonna be in line with Cassian at this point.
Okay. Again, prediction time through 3 episodes. Do you think Bix makes it through the season?
No.
I agree. I don't think she's making it either.
Unfortunately. It would be nice if Cassian kind of hides her away, but I don't think that happens.
Yeah, because I mean, even if he does hide her away, then it's like, what is the payoff in terms of him and her? Yeah, because we know what happens to him. But it would be interesting. Imagine if she's just floating out there and then he dies, and then it's like, what's going to happen with her in the future? But again, she's Adria Arjona is great. We lose Brasso, which we touched on a little bit. Joplin Sibtain, who actually, I don't know if you saw this today, as of our recording, got cast in the next season of House of the Dragon.
Oh, cool.
Which fist bump across the table because we both enjoy that series. We talk about it on here. And we both really like, I think, his portrayal of this character.
Yeah.
How did you feel when we lose him? Because, again, like for me, I really liked his character in season 1. I really, really did. And I love his relationship with Cassian and Bix. I'm really sad that we don't get more scenes with him and Andor in this season. So I was upset by it, but again, it's not like I didn't see this happening at some point. It's just it happens, and you're just like, damn it, man! Like already, like, and then now we have to sit on that going into episode 4.
Yeah, he was so likable, and he was such like a ride or die. Like when Cassian was in trouble, he would make the excuse for him. He looked after his mom while he was away and didn't like ask any questions or be like, "Yo, Cassian, this is your mom. Why am I taking care of her?" Like he's just been there. He's just been a ride or die. So whenever you lose a character like that, it's rough, and it was off screen, so it's even more shocking when you discover the body, and then they have to leave the body again, which is like the worst.
Yeah, it's brutal.
He can't get a funeral, so
Anything else with the farm planet that stood out to you?
No, I mean, I think it was giving a lot of Inglourious Basterds vibe, like the Nazis coming through and looking for people hiding among, civilians in the area. I thought Tony was making a very pointed comment on undocumented workers being taken advantage of in today's world. But I thought it was done in a nuanced way. I don't think it was like, hey, this is what's happening in our world. It's also happening here. I thought it was well done.
Yes, I agree. I also love how with so much of what these rebels are able to do when they're fighting against the Empire, it's like they're utilizing the nature of the world around them against these like powerful technological forces. Like even though obviously Cassian takes them out with the ship, but like even when he shoots down like the silo of dirt to just kill the stormtroopers, like it was just clone troopers, stormtroopers. I'm an idiot. Stormtroopers, but it's just great to see how he's able to utilize that when he's taking them out. But absolutely. I enjoyed that. But you also did touch upon a bit of humor and levity in these first 3 episodes, and I think this was what you were alluding to, but we haven't talked much about Dedra and Syril.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hot couple.
Dude, hot. I was so happy and I was like, yo, these guys are fucking. Like, I was like, we're finally here. Now, really interesting characters in season 1. I love the relationship between Syril and his mother. We do eventually get there, where after we finally are aware that Syril and Dedra are living together and they're in a relationship, that Syril is finally getting a visit from his mother, meeting Dedra for the first time. And boy, what a scene it is.
It's so good. It is so good. It's just like so uncomfortable in the best way. And I don't know who Cyril's mom is. Apparently she's a very well-known actress.
Oh, Catherine Hunter. Yeah.
She's just like fantastic.
She's great.
I love that smoker's voice delivery that she has. And Dedra's just this, like, she's trying to be this like good like housewife. And then I'm just sitting there. I'm like, this isn't Dedra. When's it coming out? And then Syril leaves and she's like, okay, listen, I'm going to straighten your boy out and you're not going to bother him anymore. You're going to see him 2 times a year and that's it.
2 times a month.
2 times a month. Okay. I forget what it was, but it was just like, I was like, oh, there's ISB Dedra. There she is.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I loved it too. I also love that you could just see the fear radiating off of Syril with every little bit that happens and him trying to navigate that middle ground of like, okay, I'm in fear of my mother, but I'm also in fear of my girlfriend.
Yeah, he's
like when his mother's character's name is Edie. When Edie goes and dips whatever they're eating in the fondue, and she's just letting it drip all over the perfectly finite white table, and he's like, mother, and she's like, I just think it's so nice that you're with my son.
Yes,
it's so good. And it, like you said, it was a big part of the humorous aspect of season 1 too, was that relationship between Edie and Syril, and now seeing where we end up with Dedra and Syril after the events of season 1, where he kind of comes to her aid and saves her life, and now they're in this relationship, and you see her in a different setting, right? Like she's in her home and she's straightened her hair and she's trying to smile in the mirror and trying to impress her potential future mother-in-law. It goes back to what I talked about earlier in the episode, but like going into these sections of Star Wars that we don't see, that we need more exposure to really reintegrate people into this world, because so much of it is we're not getting these lovable human moments with these characters that are human at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's just, again, normalizing evil. Like, Dedra has this life at home where she's meeting her boyfriend's mother for the first time, but also committing atrocities on the daily. Like, it's, again, like you said, the juxtaposition of just normalized evil, and that's what the show has done so well. And we also get a great little piece of backstory for Dedra, that her parents were criminals, and if your parents are criminals and they abandon you, what is your life goal going to be? Law and order, no questions asked. And she grew up in like a imperial kindergarten, and the mom Edie's like, nothing you can't really grow up without a mother's love.
Oh yeah, she goes, you had everything except the mother's love.
And
so good.
And Dedra's like, I think I turned out just fine. And I was like,
the tension between the two of them. And we also get to see Syril in the full circle moment of now being the director of the sector that he started working in later on in season 1, which I think I'm excited to see more of that relationship and what comes of it. But the other thing with Dedra too is, like we talked a little bit about, but the scene with Krennic, going after the Kalkite, on
Ghorman.
Ghorman, that's going to be a big part of going forward, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you know a lot more about it than I do.
I don't.
Okay.
I think I don't, like, again, this is one of those like glup shitto things where there's like this event, like the Ghorman Massacre, that is probably mentioned in like one book in one like expanded universe novel, and then like Twitter and my people, I get it. Star Wars Twitter is like, they're gonna finally show the Ghorman Massacre. It's like, it was never a big like thing. Like, it wasn't like all of these books were like exploring the Ghorman Massacre, like all this stuff. It's going to be, influential, but again, it's one of those things where it's like you read on Twitter like it's this big thing that we've all been waiting for, but like not really. Like it's probably like a very small portion of Star Wars fans that like hang on every word that we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to get the
But it is, and it has been something referenced, because I think they say Mon Mothma says something about trying to protect them in season
1. Yeah, they're talking about like trade lanes with the Ghormans, and so like he set it up earlier, but like whatever Tony's adding here is more than it's ever gotten. So I'm excited for it. I love the 50s ad read about
the propaganda,
how the Ghormans like weave the silk from the spiders, and it was so cool seeing like the weaving like farms that they have. Again, just like you dive into that world for 2 seconds and then you're out. And like you said, they have like the propaganda officers, again, really like Nazi-esque.
I love that too, where they're like, if you heard something about the Ghormans, it's probably because we decided to make it a thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, man, like this is
crazy.
It is. But it does. It humanizes these aspects of the world, because so much of it is that bigger sci-fi thing, and this really does ground it and makes it so much. There's more tension building, and you're seeing it kind of happen before your eyes, instead of just being like, oh, okay, like a character's good and then a character's bad, and they're gonna do a bad thing, and it just feels more expansive, even though it is more grounded,
right?
Which is why I love it so much.
Yeah I didn't mean to come after all my fellow Star Wars fans about the Ghorman Massacre. It strikes me as something like in A New Hope, when Obi-Wan mentions like the Clone Wars in 1977, like people are like, oh shit, what is that? And then like 30 years later we finally get it. Like it feels to me like people are like, oh, the Ghorman Massacre, like, oh, I can't wait to see that. It's like, it was never like that level. What's the Clone Wars?
It could become a big thing
with Tony writing. It definitely will. It definitely will.
Yeah,
I agree
for sure. Anything else that we haven't really touched on? We pretty much covered everything.
There's so much to cover with like 3 episode drops. Like there's so much we could keep going, but I think we
hit all the main points. Stuff, but after 3 episodes, we're very excited. We talked about our only very slight gripes. Again, like Mark, you alluded to, maybe there is a bigger payoff with these other bands of rebels that have seemingly already lost members of their own clans, and we'll see kind of what happens with that. But I am excited to dive back in next week. So we're very happy to be talking about Andor here at the Culture Wave Media Network. But Mark also has a Star Wars centric podcast and YouTube channel, which I'm going to give him the opportunity to plug right now, that you guys should absolutely check out and subscribe to.
Yeah, thanks, Darian. So Star Wars Mark of Balance on YouTube, on Instagram at @star_wars_Mark of Balance. Go a bit deeper than me and Darian do here. We keep it a little more casual, but if you want more of my commentary and more of my deep dives, you can check me out there. So I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mark, for joining us as always with our Star Wars talks. And we have other Star Wars content on our channel as well. If you guys have enjoyed our conversation, we've previously covered season 1 of Ahsoka. We've done The Acolyte. We've done Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire, Skeleton Crew. So we've talked about a lot since Mark joined the network. And then we talked like about the future of Star Wars and where they're going to go with that. I guess our next thing after this is going to be Mandalorian and Grogu, most likely. We have some other things in between that we might cover, but those are the bigger things. But check all that out if you can. And also, we don't just cover Star Wars here at Culture Wave. We have a lot of other things in film and television. Right now, we have reviews up for the feature film Sinners, if you guys want to check that out. We also we just got done with our coverage with The White Lotus. We're now covering The Last of Us week to week, which Mark has been on both episodes of that so far. So check that out if you guys can. And also on social media, you guys can follow us and see all our other stuff there. All that stuff is below me in the video, and it's also in our YouTube description. Just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Mark Jacobino.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.